Hello everybody, my name is Sarah and welcome back to Educating Adventures. When I was a kid, one of my all-time favorite animals to see at the zoo was the white tiger. I used to always wonder, why does it look so different than the rest of the tigers? Well, it turns out there's an answer, and that's exactly what we're going to be exploring today. Let's get into it. Like we said before, sometimes an animal looks a little bit different than the rest of their species. Like the white tiger, they might be partially or completely white, or the opposite, they might be completely dark or black in color. Today we're going to be exploring 3 different types of color mutations: melanism, albinism, and leucism. However, before we start discussing any of those fancy words, we have to start with a different fancy word: mutation. All animals have a unique code that makes up exactly who they are, and that unique code is called DNA. DNA is what controls things like how tall we are. It's what controls our skin color, our hair color, and our eye color, and lots of other physical traits about us. DNA is passed to us from our parents, which is why oftentimes we have similar traits to our parents. Sometimes an animal might have a small change in their DNA that causes them to look different or act different than the rest of their species does. And these small changes in DNA are called mutations. Many animals have mutations in the part of their DNA that controls something called melanin. Melanin is the pigment, which is kind of like a color. It's the pigment that controls our skin color, our hair color, and even our eye color. If an animal has a lot of melanin, their skin or their fur is going to be very dark. But if an animal doesn't have very much melanin, then their skin color or their hair color is going to appear very light. If an animal has a mutation in the part of their DNA that controls their melanin, then they might produce a ton of melanin. They might produce none at all, or maybe they produce kind of spotted melanin, patchy melanin. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about all 3 of these things, but we're gonna start with what it's like when an animal produces a ton of melanin. If an animal produces so much melanin in their fur or skin that they appear completely black, we call them melanistic. My favorite example of a melanistic animal is a black panther. A black panther is just a jaguar or a leopard that has a mutation in their DNA that causes them to produce a ton of melanin. So they appear completely black instead of having that orange color that we're used to seeing. Foxes and squirrels have also been documented being melanistic. Now let's take a look at the opposite of that. Instead of an animal that produces a ton of melanin, let's now think of an animal that doesn't produce any melanin at all. We call animals that don't produce any melanin albino. And animals that are albino are completely white in color, but another thing to note about them is an albino animal has red or pink eyes. Remember we said that the reason that our eyes have color is because of melanin. So if an animal doesn't produce any melanin, they're not going to have colored eyes. Instead, because animals have blood vessels that are kind of flowing around all within our eyes, we see some of that red or pink from the blood kind of through the skin, and that's what makes the animals appear like they have a red eye. So albino animals, not only are they white, they also have a red or pink colored eye. So there's a lot of different animals that we've seen being albino. Rabbits are definitely one of them. Wallabies are also sometimes albino, and so are alligators. Our 3rd and final color mutation to discuss is when an animal is leucistic. Leucistic animals do produce some melanin, but not a lot, or not the normal kind that they're supposed to produce. They could appear completely white, but still have colored eyes, or they could have kind of patchy whiteness over their bodies. The easiest way to tell if a completely white animal is albino or leucistic is to look at their eyes. There are many peacocks that are leucistic. We know that they are not albino because they still have dark colored eyes. White tigers are also leucistic. They still have black stripes on their body, so they're not completely white, they're leucistic instead. Sometimes leucistic animals have patches of white on their body. We sometimes call these leucistic animals piebald. Snakes are often piebald, and deer are sometimes piebald as well. While we might be used to seeing some of these color mutations in zoos, they are not nearly as common in the wild. Think about it for a second. Imagine if there was a leucistic squirrel. They are bright white in color. They are not going to be able to camouflage as well as a brown squirrel, and therefore they might not live as long, right? They might not even live long enough to reproduce and have their own offspring. In zoos, animals with color mutations are much more common because we can breed animals together specifically hoping to get that mutation. Remember, we said that animals, we get our DNA from our parents. So if we breed two animals that have the same mutation, there's a good chance that their offspring, their babies, might also have the same mutation. If we breed two black panthers together, the chances that their offspring are also going to be melanistic or black is much more likely. If we breed two piebald, two leucistic snakes together, there's a good chance that at least some of their offspring will also be piebald or leucistic. While breeding animals with color mutations can be done responsibly, it's typically not. Unfortunately, a lot of the animals that we have in zoos that have these color mutations are related to each other. So when we breed them together, their offspring, while they might have the mutation, are typically not as healthy as they would be otherwise. So while I'm sure I'm not the only kid whose favorite animal at the zoo is the white tiger, but when we are visiting these zoos, there are things that we can do to make sure that these animals are healthy and being bred responsibly. Reach out to your local zoo or aquarium. See if they have any animals that have color mutations. Figure out where they came from. Were they bred responsibly? And if the answer is no, then that's probably not a zoo that we should be supporting. Another way that you can help make sure that these exotic animals with color mutations are protected is by making responsible choices when purchasing pets like snakes and lizards. Don't buy any pets that have really unusual color mutations, because there's a good chance they might not have been bred in the most responsible way. All right, you guys. Well, I hope that I answered all of your questions today, learning why white tigers are white and black panthers are black. There are some really amazing, unusual animals all around the world. If you would like to learn more about color mutations, be sure to visit our website. We've got quizzes, activities, projects, and so much more. Click that link below, and I can't wait to see you at our next adventure. Thank you.